Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги.
Good day, distinguished colleagues.
Добрый день, уважаемые дамы и господа,
Good day,
уважаемые коллеги.
distinguished ladies and gentlemen, distinguished
Позвольте
colleagues.
представиться.
Let me
Меня зовут
introduce myself. My
Аслан
name is
Туриханович
Асылхан
Абишев.
Туриханович
Я
Абишев.
директор
I'm a
Казахского
director
научного
of
центра
Kazakh
дерматологии и инфекционных заболеваний.
Scientific Research Institute of Dermatology and Infection Diseases of the Ministry of the Republic of Kazakhstan. And today in Kazakhstan there will be the first presentation of Global AIDS Report 2022, UNAIDS report. So the name of the report is In Danger. On the just being a hosting country, I would like just to welcome all the colleagues who attend here in UN House and those who joined from Almaty, Kazakhstan, and from other countries, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Armenia, and Moldova. And now I am just giving the floor to Director of UNAIDS Office in Kazakhstan, Madam Gabriela Ionashko. Good day, distinguished colleagues, distinguished friends. We have the honor of presenting in Kazakhstan the Global AIDS Report 2022. We have just to mention that this is the most important publication of UN on HIV/AIDS of our program because it provides the up-to-date information on the condition of AIDS epidemics globally in regions and in separate countries. So the report analyzes new practices and approaches in counteracting epidemics and provides recommendations and defines strategic tasks in this area for governments, international organizations, and civil society. Global AIDS Report 2022 is titled In Danger, and its English version was presented at the International Conference for AIDS in Montreal on the 27th of July 2022 with the participation of the Executive Director of UNAIDS, Bini Bianima. Today we are presenting the Russian version of this report, and the summary of this report is provided in the handouts, and the total version, like 300 pages of the report, is just available on the UNAIDS website, or you can just find it just scanning a QR code. Our meeting just takes place in a very difficult, is not simple way. We are all witnessing humanitarian migration and economic crisis in the region, and probably today we have to answer or try to answer the question: what should we do, and what can we do, and what should we do in order to maintain and retain the achievements that we have in the area of counteracting HIV infection in our region. I hope that we will be able to answer this question today with the help of the journalists from 6 countries, and I'm just glad that you all come to Almaty. I hope that we will be able, and we'll be able to communicate the main messages of the new report In Danger to governmental institutions, non-governmental organizations, and to the people in our region, of whom, to no less extent, depends our success in counteracting HIV infection. Thank you. Thank you very much, distinguished Gabriela. I would like just to communicate the order of our procedure of our work today. First, we will listen to the presentations of our guests, then we'll have Q&A session. Now, let me introduce today's speakers, today's guests. So this is Mr. Eamon Murphy, Deputy Executive Director of UNAIDS, Acting Regional Director for Eastern Europe and Central Asian countries, Nurali Amanjolov, President of Central Asian Association of People Living with HIV, and we'll have online Mr. Dusenov Azamat Kinayatovich, Director of the Department for Organizing Medical Aid of the Ministry of Healthcare of the Republic of Kazakhstan. I'm also glad to introduce our partners, activists from civil society, Central Asia, Amir Shakizhanov, Director of Amanbol Project, Victoria Primak, human rights activists, and our guests who are just here with us online from Kyrgyzstan.
Узбекистана и Молдовы.
Uzbekistan, Moldova,
Сейчас
and Kyrgyzstan.
разрешите представить
Now,
приветственное слово
let me give the floor
Дюсенову Азамату
to Mr. Dusenov
Кинаятовичу,
Azamat
директору
Kinayatovich, Director of the Department of
медицинской
Organizing Medical
помощи,
Aid
Министерства здравоохранения
of the
Республики
Ministry of
Казахстан.
Healthcare of the Republic of Kazakhstan.
Хайрлы күн, добрый день,
Hello,
уважаемые дамы и
distinguished
господа,
ladies and
уважаемые
gentlemen,
коллеги.
distinguished
Разрешите
colleagues.
от имени Министерства
Let me,
здравоохранения
on
Республики
behalf of the
Казахстан,
Ministry of
поприветствовать на
Healthcare
данной
of the
региональной
Republic of
презентации.
Kazakhstan,
Позвольте выразить
welcome you at
благодарность
this
организаторам за
presentation.
приглашение для
Let
участия в
me
таком значимом
express
мероприятии.
my gratitude for being
В
invited
Казахстане
to
борьба
such
с
important
ВИЧ-инфекцией
event. In Kazakhstan, counteracting HIV is one of the priorities. In the Kazakhstan jointly with other countries who just support political declaration on HIV and terminating AIDS strategy 95, 95, 95. 95% of people living with HIV should know about their status. 95% of them should get treatment, and 95% should be the viral load achieved. So since all the years of the first 35 years since the registration of the first HIV infection in Kazakhstan, HIV epidemics is just maintained and concentrated stage. So the consultation, testing, providing ART, antiretrovirus therapy, treatment of sexually transmitted infection, like dissemination of syringes, and so on. So all just showed good achievements. At the same time, pre-contact and express testing and index testing is being implemented. As of today, availability of ART preparations is 100% for HIV infected. Dominating treatment protocols combine the forms of preparation with daily intake of one time per day. And today, so the 18 items of ART with different form and dosing are just a part of the list of medications for free of charge or preferential treatment. As a result of ART therapy availability, so the reduction of the mortality of people living with HIV and AIDS just is observed by twice, from 16 to 4 per 1,000 people living with HIV in 2011, down to 8 in 2021. In addition, so the government provides free of charge basis other medical services. 43 non-governmental organizations operating in this area, and the representative of key group of population are invited to participate in the development of programs and materials, implementation of projects, and to work in the country coordination committee to work with international organization in the area of HIV infection and TB. Today we are just we are facing new challenges in the region. According to the Code on Health of Population, in our country, expats can just undergo testing for HIV anonymously, and just when necessary to get services for on a pre and post-test consultation. And we do understand the situation is changing, and we're ready to enhance cooperation with neighboring countries to involve potential to the maximum extent of the civil society and to work on just to remove barriers in access to services for all who need them. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we hope that our partnership and further interaction would allow attaining further results in counteracting HIV. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Azamat Kinayatovich. Let me give the floor now to Mr. Eamon Murphy, Deputy Executive Director of UNAIDS, for just presenting the global report.
Good morning, colleagues from across the region. Mr. Dusenov, Mr. Abisev, Nurali, Victoria, Amir, Baktigul, and other colleagues from Kazakhstan and online. It's a great pleasure to be here with you for the launch or the release of the regional chapters and the global report. It's really important that we look at the elements that are specific to our region, as well as looking at how that sits within the overall global response to HIV. So I'd like to thank our partners here in the Republic of Kazakhstan for their leadership and commitment to the AIDS response. The Global AIDS Report, In Danger, issued a strong warning that derailing progress to end AIDS is putting millions of people in danger globally. During the last 2 years of COVID-19 and other global crises, progress against the HIV pandemic has faltered. Resources have shrunk and millions of lives are at risk as a result. Last year, the number of new infections dropped only 3.6% globally, the smallest annual decline in new HIV infections since 2016, a significant shift. Approximately 1.5 million new infections occurred last year, over 1 million more than the global targets that the governments have agreed to. The number of people on HIV treatment grew more slowly in 2021 than it has in over a decade. And while 3/4 of all people living with HIV have access to antiretroviral treatment, 10 million or more people do not. Testing and hence HIV diagnoses decreased in many countries. Reduced access to TB diagnoses and treatment resulted in a sharp increase in TB deaths amongst people living with HIV. The AIDS pandemic took a life every minute in 2021, with over 650,000 AIDS deaths, despite the expanding HIV treatment coverage and available new effective tools to prevent, to detect, and to treat the opportunistic infections. Resources for global health are also under serious threat with the triple impact of COVID, of economic and conflicts globally. Colleagues, the region of Eastern Europe and Central Asia is especially in danger, which is why I'm pleased to be here in Kazakhstan with colleagues to talk about the important data in this report. In 2021, 160,000 people were newly infected with HIV in our region, a 48% increase since 2010. The number of AIDS-related deaths in the region in 2021 is 32% higher than the number of deaths in 2010. It should be the reverse. We should be seeing a decline in deaths with the availability of treatment, but we're seeing an increase both in new infections and in deaths. According to our UNAIDS report, in 2020, 54% of new HIV diagnoses were also made at a CD4 count higher than 350, which is 10% higher than the rate in 2018. So we're also seeing later stage illness being identified. As of 2021, only 63% of people living with HIV were aware of their status. 81% of these people were on treatment, which is only 51% of all people living with HIV in our region. And 94% of people on treatment had achieved viral suppression, but that's only 48% of all those infected. So we have a significant challenge ahead of us if we are to work together to control this epidemic. ART initiation is showing signs of slowdown in the region. Between 2018 and 2019, ART initiation had increased by an average of 14%, but it dropped to 8% between 2020 and 2021. Stigma and discrimination continues to be the major block to effective responses to AIDS in our region. COVID-19 also exposed an epidemic of violence against women across the region, and it's also increased the economic marginalization and vulnerabilities of women. Legal and policy frameworks vary across our region. HIV transmission, exposure, and non-disclosure, though, is criminalized in all countries. although prosecution varies from country to country. This we must work together to change. While the majority of countries have decriminalized same-sex relations, stigma against gay men and other men who have sex with men, which is a large part of the new infections of sexual transmission, this stigma is common, and reports of violence against people from this community stop them from accessing services, a critical problem if we're trying to deal with a public health challenge. The global shocks, including COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine, have significantly exacerbated the risks to HIV response systems across our region and challenged the sustainable financing that we were working together so hard on. Since 2018, data from 12 countries in our region suggests that only 6% of HIV resources were allocated to prevention. Most countries rely on domestic funding only for the prevention services for people who inject drugs, but some countries still depend for 100% from the international community for prevention. This is a significant problem for control of the epidemic and for sustainability. Current domestic spending on programs is neither sufficient to meet the necessary coverage for achieving the 2025 targets that all countries in our region have agreed to, nor to reduce HIV incidence in the community. The AIDS response in all countries would require us to work together to achieve additional funding, not only from domestic resources, but also from the international community. We must work together to call for a continued funding from the international community for these essential life-saving programs. Let me conclude with some urgent measures that we need across our region. Maximizing the availability of community-led, people-centered services in all parts of the region. We need to work together to remove those punitive and discriminatory laws, especially those criminalizing HIV transmission or key populations that are preventing people from accessing the necessary prevention, testing, and treatment services that the governments are trying to offer. We need national action and international solidarity in providing sustainable financing and equal HIV prevention and treatment services. Spasiba. Thank you. Rahmet.
Спасибо огромное.
Thank you very much. Big thanks to Mr. Murphy for such historic event. For the first time on the platform of our country, the global report was presented on the danger of HIV globally. And now I would like to give the floor to the director of Central Asian Association of People Living with HIV, Mr. Nurali Aman.
Доброе утро, коллеги.
Good morning, colleagues, friends.
Мне тут выпала честь
I have the honor of just addressing the role of community in counteracting epidemics. The role of the community is needed, it's unvaluable, so it cannot be overestimated, so nothing can be done without us. So it was mentioned that we are part of various councils, committees, but I can say that the role of the community is still just important in prevention programs as peer-to-peer, and as far as monitoring by the community-led monitoring. So this is monitoring of procurements, monitoring of observing rules. We have such a website, pereboy.kz, where people just apply in case of certain outages or interruptions of services, and we respond immediately. We conduct a lot of service and studies in relation to migrants, for example, that we are going to have a roundtable discussion on the 13th of December. So we do understand the situation, so it's still intact. Stigma index survey was also carried out, which is followed by the advocacy plan. We are doing a lot in terms of advocacy, in terms of reducing prices, access to services, and we are just working jointly with the parliament members. Yesterday we just filed application to the from the MP to the Minister of
то, что
social protection and
НПО
labor.
именно
And we'd like to
сообщество, у
say
них
that
огромный
we have
потенциал,
great potential
они много
and
умеют,
great
многое
capacity
знают,
in
и
NGO
поэтому надо давать им
community. They
возможность
know a lot
этот
and they
потенциал,
just
эти
learn a
навыки
lot. And we
проявлять.
have just to build their
Вот. Должна
capacity
быть
so that
какая-то
they will
устойчивость
reveal
программ.
their skills. There should be certain
Вот. Спасибо.
sustainability of
Будут
programs.
вопросы,
Thank you
отвечу.
very much. Should we have any questions? We'll be ready to take them.
Спасибо, Нурали Хамакалыч,
Thank you,
за ваше
Nurali
выступление.
Hamakalovich,
Я бы
for your
сейчас хотел бы
presentation.
напомнить,
Now
что
I'd
с
like
нами
to
на связи
remind you that
коллеги
we
из
have
Кыргызстана,
colleagues from
Айбек
Kyrgyzstan,
Бекболатов,
Aybek
заместитель
Bekbulatov,
директора
Deputy
Республиканского центра
Director
СПИД
of the
Кыргызстана,
Republican Center AIDS
коллеги из Молдовы,
Kyrgyzstan,
Светлана
colleague from
Попович,
Moldova,
национальный
Svetlana
координатор
Popovich,
по
National
лечению
Coordinator
Республики
for
Молдова,
Treatment in the
и
Republic of
Лев
Moldova,
Заграбян,
and
советник по
Lev
стратегической
Zagrabyan,
информации регионального
so
офиса
the
UNAIDS. Сейчас я хотел бы предоставить слово
from UNAIDS
нашим
office,
спикерам,
like
активистам,
advisor.
представляющим
Now I would like
организации
to give the
сообщества
floor to
Центральной
our
Азии.
speakers, to our
Это Амиру
activists,
Шакижанову,
Amir Shakizhanov, who represents
директору
Central Asia,
проекта
director of
Aman
Aman Bol project.
Добрый день.
Hello.
Мне кажется, что очень важно, что мы,
I think it's really important that we are
много пугающих цифр.
talking about frightening figures because during the last year, 4,000 people just faced HIV and 650 just perished from the AIDS-related diseases. I think this is a frightening figure. So still we are responding in spite of our response to this, because I think that all professionals and activists working in this area just say a lot about the significant statistics, indicators, figures. Of course, this is an important tool of our work, of our efforts, but I think we have to remind ourselves and our relations that there are people behind these figures and human beings with their history, their stories. And when we work with figures, we sometimes forget that these are human beings. And Mr. Murphy mentioned one of the barrier to access medical services is stigma and discrimination. And this is a criteria which is difficult just to track, to monitor. And it is much more difficult to work with this. But nevertheless, I think this is one of the key factors that can have just a big impact on access to for any group to services. And there are a lot of stories, how just case studies, how can be just a barrier. I will just tell about my good friend Dos, great guide, soul of any company. So we're communicating a lot with him. So he just was quite successful in counteracting stigma with his gay status. But when HIV status, so he just left many, he was lost because he left many friends and relatives. And so there is a story of one person who just had several infectious diseases and whose father just died of insult, and we just lost connections with them and found out several months later that that person died of AIDS. My story is maybe a little not so difficult, but nevertheless I have it, and we have just to tell these stories and just to remember that these stories are just associated with human beings. And I'm really glad and I'm really honored that jointly with UNAIDS and Equalize Time, so we, the Center of Legal Initiatives, would give hand to all these efforts so that the situation would improve, so that we would remember about human beings, and we will just build our services and structure them so that the needs of people would be heard, and we hope that it will reduce stigma and discrimination. Thank you. Thank you, Amir. Now I would like to give the floor to Victoria Primak, so human rights activist from Republic of Kazakhstan. Hello, good morning. Glad to see all of you here. Thank you very much for being invited, for having been invited. Yes, I had a possibility just to review the report prior to our meeting, and I think that, like all of you, after this presentation, you will learn a lot of information. I would like to focus on the following. Regrettably, not all key groups are taken into consideration in being provided full-fledged assistance and aid, and to have equal opportunities. And so this launch of Equalizing Time campaign just says that it would provide access to those who have no just access to HIV prevention and treatment. I'm talking about transgender community, which is not a key group now, though we just based on the report, and we can understand that for several years, so activists and advocates, our partners, just have been saying a lot that this is a key group which requires aid, which requires help, which requires treatment and prevention. But regrettably, it is not included, it is excluded, and it's not feasible. But for me, for myself, so this is a big hope and possibility just which is provided by the launch of this campaign. I think that I would call on everyone, including the government, just to pay attention to this and to try to just eradicate the stigma, which is very difficult to overcome, so that people would have possibility to get access and to information and to all services. And as already mentioned by my colleagues, a lot of barriers exist, regrettably, not only in big cities, but in the regions which are not covered at all by ethical just communication with transgender community, which represents a big barrier. Thank you. Thank you, Victoria. Now I would like to give the floor to Bakhtegul Israilova, head of the country network of women living with HIV from Kyrgyzstan. Thank you for this honor to take the floor now from our network in Kyrgyzstan. When just taking the floor, having taken the floor, I would like just to say the following. Speaking about access, there are achievements. Preparations are provided for longer term. There is no link now, but we observe many movements and high mobility globally. War, conflicts, refugees, aggression, which is on the air. So domestic migrants, external migration processes, and at the same time, like big problems arise, like access to diagnostics, access to how to get treatment, how to get treated and cured. So this is really very topical now, very urgent now, and we just want that the universality of this access would remain, so that the access would be universal. For me, as a woman, as a person living with HIV, it is important just to have access to services of global technologies, modern technologies, like injection preparations. So it's not like injection preparations that should be just injected once a week, that are of just longer time action, and which would be very comfortable and convenient for people who just undergo long-term therapy, including for children, HIV-infected children. Out of the modern technologies, maybe this is a fantasy, but for example, with like preparations against diabetes. when people with diabetes just have these small syringes and with these devices just to know their sugar level or glucose level. So when they do not just go to the doctors, when they stay home, so just avoiding any stigma and discrimination, so they just can get tested at home, just know their viral load and learning about the viral load. And I think it would be quite interesting so to use modern technologies in reproductive health for pregnant women with HIV, so that they would be confident, so that they feel the protection when they plan their family, when they plan this pregnancy period. And it would be quite interesting and timely for women living with HIV. The next point I would like to voice up is the age. When people living with HIV get older and elder, maybe, and when they just face a bigger risk of, for example, cardiovascular diseases or oncological diseases. So HIV just affects the entire body, human body, and the preparations anyway affect our body. They provoke aging, faster aging, and acceleration of any other associated diseases. And I would like to continue the topic of stigma and discrimination, which was already touched upon by my colleagues. I would, as a follow-up, I would say that what Nurali just mentioned about the Stigma and Discrimination Index survey, we conducted the same in our country, and the survey showed high extent of stigma and discrimination from on the side of medical staff, healthcare institution staff, but we can see that the level of stigma is really very high, remains very high. I would like just to say that stigma and discrimination are increasing in the community at present, and it increases between and among the communities. So this is like time for equality, equalizing time. So this is a good motto, and I would like to focus on this. And I would like to emphasize, so the title of the global report, In Danger. Now, people who just live with HIV are in danger. Women living with HIV are in danger. In Kyrgyzstan, so the community of people living with HIV called on all representatives of all international organizations, to all heads of international organizations based in our country, to ensure implementation of the declared principles in the area of HIV and AIDS, like reducing violence, gender inequality of those who just work in this area or who are beneficiaries or clients of these organizations, those who work in HIV counteracting area. Although paradoxal, but our recent case, I would like just to highlight it because we cannot just keep silent. So this is a fact of cruel violence against women living with HIV, which took place in Almaty in Kazakhstan during international women training. And though it is ridiculous, although quite sad, so the name of the training was Work with Victims of Violence Against Women Living with HIV, where the woman living with HIV was beaten. And we want and just request and demand to ensure protection of this suffered woman, of this victim, because still we have aggression against her because she did not want to keep silent, and her family is also threatened with violence and with different types of attacks, and it's quite strange when, and it's really a shame when such things happen in communities. So when just people say that community of people just living with HIV just take part in international conferences, attend different types of events. So people just living with HIV are always like top priority. But just we want this. We are growing as a community. We just learn a lot of things. We just take part in different advocacy events and campaigns. We are living with HIV. We take this therapy. We want to live, and we want to live in a decent. We want to live decent and quality lives. And we want not to be discriminated. When we hear such expressions that, and what should we do? What should we do? What should we? Shall we just get infected with drug injections, so just to get all the preferences and benefits that are obtained by people living with HIV? We want protection. We want to remove, we want to have stigma and discrimination removed. We want to avoid or prevent any facts of violence against women living with HIV. UN agencies does not support any violence and any discriminations, any violence, any abuse. Sorry, some interruption. This is not acceptable in any form. Thanks to the country office of UNAIDS here in Kyrgyzstan, which demonstrated its just commitment, steady commitments to stopping or terminating any violence against women and any gender violence against people living with HIV. It also offered to provide all possible support to that woman and is supporting people living with HIV in Kyrgyzstan, because violence against women and girls is still one of the most common forms of human rights violation, thus threatening health, freedom, and the security and safety of women and girls. And therefore, only among women who just are victims of sexual or gender violence have demonstrate higher level of mental disorders. And as of today, so this is quite an urgent issue, so that measures should be taken to prevent any forms of violence, to eradicate stigma and discrimination for all in all communities, inside communities, so that the declared principles of global strategy, AIDS strategy, would be fulfilled. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bakhtigul. Now we have time for just Q&A session, just ask your questions or give your comments, provide your comments. If you have any questions, I mean the audience here in the room, conference room, or just online, please introduce yourself and ask your question to the speaker. Yes, please. Thank you. Irina Chuvtaeva, journalist from Russia, based in Germany. My question is to Vyacheslav Dudnik. Please tell us what is done to counteract discrimination against doctors who live with HIV. What measures are taken in the country? And second question to Mr. Murphy. I do not quite understand how the war or like invasion of Russia to Ukraine just have impact on the situation of people living with HIV in the region. Can you please tell us the spheres of impact or maybe some challenges when people are facing this HIV issue during wartime? Thank you. Regrettably, Vyacheslav Yurich is not present today because he just now is just a part of some other summit. I would answer your first question, what is done by the government just to counteract, to fight stigma and discrimination. I would like just introduce myself once again. Abhishek Asulkhan, director of the Institute of Dermatology and Infection Diseases. In all regulatory documents started from the Constitution and Code of Health of Population just stipulate provisions to exclude discrimination based on the disease signs. We have provisions in the code that no discrimination is allowed within provision of social services, any treatment services, or any other areas of our life. We also conduct educational trainings, I mean the governmental units, and we also involve just the funds of our global donors that are aimed at supporting civil society. And when working with doctors, with the population to eradicate stigma and discrimination. If you are happy with this answer, I would like to pass the floor to Mr. Murphy.
Spasiba. Thank you. It's a really important question. The impact of the invasion and subsequent war in Ukraine is not just for our region, but also globally. We're seeing the impact on prices of food, fuel, a whole range of other economic impacts. This also impacts on the ordinary community in so many countries that are facing food crises already. And so people living with HIV and other vulnerable populations are equally and have greater impact. In our region, in terms of HIV, in Ukraine itself, obviously, there was a service interruption, but one of the most impressive things is that the strength of civil society working with government in Ukraine were able to make sure that treatment and forms of prevention and other support were able to be moved through into the community, even in the areas where there was acute conflict and fighting. The international community rallied to make sure service treatment was provided to the country, so there was enough treatment for 12 months, and that people were able to have multi-month take-home doses to take with them wherever they go. More than 7 million people have left the country, and we have winter approaching. Concern of increased outward migration will also occur. Social disruption across the region with people from Russia moving out, from people from other countries that were going for economic migration moving within the region. This creates social dislocation. The government of Kazakhstan is already preparing for the potential impact of people coming into Kazakhstan itself and the issues of HIV or other social issues or health issues that may be at need. I was in Kiev and visited Ukraine in June of this year to see firsthand what services are being provided. The partnership, the strength of the partnership between the government at the heart with the community together, making sure they were making the services available, food supplies, other forms of shelter for people who have been forced to leave their homes, was so impressive to see. And it's a strength of the HIV response that is being used elsewhere. People living with HIV in Ukraine, the networks are also providing food supplies to the general community. So that shows the investments and partnerships, like in Kazakhstan, with governments taking a lead to work with the community has a powerful impact, not just for HIV, but a whole range of health and social issues when there's need. But you have to admire the resilience of the ordinary people in Ukraine in dealing with this crisis. Thanks.
Спасибо. Вы удовлетворены ответом?
Thank you. Are you happy with this? Are you satisfied with the answer?
Вопросы?
Yes. Any other
Комментарии?
questions, comments?
Так,
Sorry to take the floor again. I wanted to comment on Baktugul's important statements. The issue of gender-based violence is a crisis globally, not just in our region. But at times when you have conflating issues like HIV and gender-based violence, it's even worse, the stigma and discrimination is critical in the community. So I'd like to thank her for speaking out on this. Community is where we all live. We should be the safest in our own communities. So this is a critical issue for us in our countries, in the region, to look at lack of information in the community that drives and causes the stigma that then causes discrimination. So we need countries across the region to be looking at active awareness campaigns. The new treatments mean that people live normal lives like everybody else. If you're on treatment, your viral load is suppressed, you can then have children live a normal life like everybody else. And so the lack of understanding is behind a lot of this stigma, and it's the old understandings that we need to dispel and move together to create a new awareness of what HIV is today, which is very different to what it was 30 years ago. So really admire that she speaks out on these issues, because these are highly sensitive when we talk of gender-based violence or other forms of violence and stigma in our communities. But it's important that we have champions like Baktugul speaking out directly on these issues. So I'd like to thank her for that.
Спасибо, доктор Мерфи.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy.
Пожалуйста.
Yes, please.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Галина Дзержинская, я из Молдовы, из Кишинева.
Микрофон.
Хочу спросить, как конкретно проявляется вот эта опасность эпидемии ВИЧ-инфекции для нашей республики.
No microphone, I'm sorry. So I don't know how this is revealed for our country. So it's good, just to attain the goal 90-90-90, but what's the threat of these epidemics for our country, and what is necessary to be taken by our government to prevent it? Did I understand you correctly that this is a question to Dr. Murphy and to Madam Gabriela? First of all, we would like to mention that the government of the Republic of Moldova responded to the crisis quite well, and I would like to acknowledge that the response that was provided to the crisis was actually what we expected and what should be done. One of the principles of providing medical aid in our region is regrettably associated only with the residents and citizens of the country. And when such crisis takes place, like it happened in our region, when big number of residents of the Ukraine just rushed to Moldova on the first day of the crisis. So it's natural that the government responded and opened doors for prevention, for diagnostics, for methadone treatment for everyone who needs this, not only to residents of Moldova, but to all people. And this is the response which is expected from all countries. No matter what budget exists in the country, no matter what is budgeted for this, for prevention of HIV for citizens of your country, or for HIV treatment for citizens of your country. If there are citizens of other countries with HIV who cannot just get the services, so the infection will just be spread. So the main expectation is that services are provided to everyone, irrespectively of nationality and place of residence, and therefore the chance that the dissemination of infection could be terminated and stopped. So, and even in such crisis like it happened in Moldova is possible, and Kazakhstan is working on this at the moment. Thank you, Gabriela. Any other questions? Regrettably, I do not see any hands. Please introduce yourself and just... Hello. Erika Kapyan from Armenia, journalist. My question, I will just ask the question, and you will decide who is going to take this question, because I don't know who will be able just to provide more detailed answer. War in Ukraine showed that it's important to have a strategy for the people living with HIV because of migration processes, because of the war. People are leaving, and many people just interrupt their treatment, and they cannot just get access to medicines. As you know, in Armenia, so the situation is not quite safe in terms of conflicts, in terms of war, and we are not just insured against this. But I'm interested, if there is any strategy, or if there will be any strategy which will be provided to the countries which are just facing high threat of war, conflicts. If so, can you just represent it? If not, so can you tell what is important, just to be what measures should be taken by the government to be ensured so that it would never to avoid anything of this kind in their countries? Thank you. At the global level, there is a general principle of working in crisis situations, including like healthcare aspects. I just mentioned for Moldova that the main principle is providing all services and all aid which is provided to accessible for citizens of Moldova to other countries' citizens, plus additional information component for everyone, just informing population, communicating to population where the services can be obtained, because we all know that these services exist, but nobody knows where they are. And the most important recommendation, and all doctors know about this, is just providing preparations, medical preparations directly to beneficiaries on hands or ART, or like pre-contact prevention or methadone for longer period up to 6 months, because if a person just has to move, well, he or she needs like resources and some stock of this preparation. And we think that such people should have this stock on hand in crisis situations that take place. And of course, just involvement of NGOs to distribute all these preparations, because governmental units have no physical ability to distribute medical preparations, to deliver information to each patient. And therefore, non-governmental sector should be involved to ensure through this chain of distribution of preparation information to beneficiaries and clients. Thank you, Gabriela. Any other questions?
Пожалуйста.
Yes, please. Hello, Oksana Ibragimova, Kazakhstan, Union of People Living with HIV. It's not a secret that since September we have big inflow of migrants from Russia, Ukraine. My question is to Mr. Salkhan Turikhanovich, what is specifically taken by Kazakhstan to ensure ART for foreign citizens, for expats? Thank you for your question, Oksana.
Хотел бы сказать,
I would like just to mention that at present, citizens of foreign countries just obtain ART from Global Fund resources, and the changes and amendments that we initiated just to provide assistance to foreign residents and just migrants, so within the assured or mandatory medical aid. And I would like just to say that we're just speaking about the social media, like all the fights that take place there. So, and I would say that, remind that it's not allowed or it's not acceptable to express any stigma or discrimination against people who cross the border, and the principle about the principal support of the civil society in general, that deterioration of epidemiological situation in terms of HIV is not observed in the country. So versus the past year, the previous year, prior to like this combat actions in Eastern Europe. No record showing any increase of cases of people living with HIV. No statistics of this sort. And I would like just to mention, like Mr. Azamat mentioned in his presentation, testing for all expats is open, free of charge. So within the free of charge medical or granted medical services provided. So, and we just shared that information quite recently. And statistically, we do not see any increase of HIV, of number of people who would have applied for testing or just confirming their status. I would like to add a couple of words. Oksana, thank you for your question. In effect, so this process has been monitored by, together with the regional group for migrants' health. If, like, after 21st of September, we just faced and experienced that big inflow of foreign citizens, now we just experience outflow. Kazakhstan was viewed as a transit zone, which allows to stay here up to 90 days. There were some, just maybe several applications. Yes, there were. So I would say, yes, there were several applications, and we provided preparations. Thank you. Hello, Pavel Savin, Central Asian Association of People Living with HIV. As far as a number of cases, so Pereboy KZ provides information on, so a lot of applications during recent, during 10 minutes, past minutes, like 3 applications from migrants who relocated to Kazakhstan, so specifying the need of just obtaining preparations, ART preparations. Yesterday we had 2 applications or messages, like there are cases recorded, and the number of migrants that need help increases, and so I think we have to pay attention to this issue, because the stock of preparations are needed, and people need these treatment schemes and treatment protocols probably. So these protocols just do not coincide with ours. In some times, like the component scheme is applied. This is just for your information. So we have all these applications and messages at Pereboy KZ. We can provide all information to you with a breakdown, of number of cases, what treatments are needed. So during 10 minutes, recent minutes, we've just got 3 applications. I would like to emphasize that Kazakhstani Center of Dermatology and Infectious Diseases is has ongoing contacts with the civil society. Like 2 weeks ago, we discussed so the developed roadmap or potential roadmap, and we just had representatives of the civil society. I asked the question: how many people need just to get this provision? I can see these emotions, like, but I would like we would like to know the number. It's not like people just apply and he or she gets preparations. So the question is, or the issue is, that I would like to emphasize that 100% of financing ART is just the budget one. So ART is budget financed from the budget, and Kazakhstani taxpayers need just accounting figures. So what, how much, and what, during which period of time was provided. I would like just to get this information, and we will just elaborate on this. I would like just to emphasize our openness. So anytime, day or night, we are ready just to help with all possible legitimate ways. Please introduce yourself and who you ask your question to. Oh, sorry. Hello, Zoeva Kirgidji from Kyrgyzstan. Now, so you just touched the issue of migrants who need help. Can you please explain how information and communication policy is just carried out? Even if a person just considers Kazakhstan as a transit territory, how the person and where can such person get information? As it was already mentioned, so you just record some cases, and the number of people who need this help is increasing. So you ask, so this question is to me. If you can answer this, yes, please. I will try at least. To answer your question,
Информационная
information
политика, у нас
policy
есть,
and
во-первых,
communication policy.
в каждом регионе
In each region, we have regional center, HIV center, and all of them have information website which publishes the number of services and the scope of services, and we just publish our press releases on a regular basis, and we just carry out our regular work with our Central Asian Kazakhstani Union of people living with HIV on what services, particular services provided to expats, and so what they can obtain. So the nuance is that the countries that, or residents of the countries just crossing the border, or maybe 99% so of these countries are the countries that we have like visa-free regime agreements. Up to 90 days, citizens of these countries can stay without any registration, and only on their voluntary application due to the convention and joint efforts taken in the field of counteracting barriers, stigma and discrimination. If a person wants just to undergo voluntary testing, only in this case, so we can just record this case. Only in this instant we can record this case. I think that if people want to apply, they can just Google and just see all information about the like contact points and the scope of services they can get from the government. I'm not interested in foreign citizens, so I just am interested in Kazakhstani women. So when they are victims of domestic violence or sexual violence, when they apply to certain shelters, and if they have HIV status, because they just refuse to provide these shelters. So where they can apply, where they can just put their claims to if they refuse such services, and what is done by the Kazakhstani government just to avoid such situations, such discrimination against such women associated with their HIV status. To us, to NGOs, I think. So there is a resolution, I don't remember the number of this resolution, so 379, and so yesterday, so there was like MP's request inquiry, which just states directly that the list of services is not accessible, that just staying in crisis centers. So, but you can just apply to us, to NGOs. We can just and we can provide any assistance we can. So quite recently in the Fund of Parliamentarism, so such issues were addressed with the participation of MPs, governmental authorities, representatives and NGOs, and the deputy inquiry was underpinned by that discussion and decision-making. I would like to emphasize once again that according to the Code on Health, there are no discrimination measures against just staying in some social institutions or any shelters. Shelters are part of such social institutions. I think most likely there will be certain amendments to the bylaws, and so to such document as the Code on Health. If you are just happy with our joint answer, we have a comment from the Republic of Moldova, online comment. If you allow me, we will just connect Republic of Moldova online. Hello. I'm Svetlana Popovich. I am coordinator for ART, antiretrovirus therapy. I would like to comment that regrettably, so the everything which happens in the world sets quite big challenges before us, and we have no time for any thinking. COVID-19 epidemics and events in the Ukraine, conflict in the Ukraine showed us that we just built a lot of patterns and models, but they should be quite flexible and agile to adapt to what's happening in the world. Talking about the events in the Ukraine, a lot of migrants, a lot of refugees really present a burden for Moldova. And thanks to all actors, to all stakeholders who helped us to resolve that issue in a short period of time. The governmental bodies just created a legal base and regulatory base which allows everyone to get access to, in spite of or irrespectively of any documents, just to obtain services in prevention, testing and treatment of HIV. But another problem just emerges. How migrants would learn that these services are provided, are accessible, and the role of NGOs and non-governmental sector can help in this. Civil society just undertook this task of communicating information, awareness, providing services in prevention, testing, and referring these people who need our help to all healthcare institutions. And in spite of the fact that Moldova became the main transit country, approximately 500,000 Ukrainian citizens passed through the territory of Moldova, and many people needed those services at that moment. And we provided those services. We did provide those services. And our cooperation between NGOs and representatives of NGOs just helped us to obtain information on preparations, medical preparations that have to be provided to this, needed to be provided to these patients, and the citizens of Ukraine just got the services in prevention, in testing, in ART. Pregnant women with HIV just applied to us. We just provided services in pre-contact prevention. And as far as stock of preparation is concerned, you know that Moldova is such a small country versus the Ukraine that even a small number of HIV infected just had an impact on the stock of our preparation. And thanks to the governmental bodies and international organizations which helped us to estimate number of people who would need this kind of assistance and treatment protocols. And during this short period of time, we just managed to replenish our stock so that it would have no impact or adverse impact on the services provided to our citizens. Thanks for this report. Thanks for this title, In Danger, because in effect, due to the fact that these events are taking place, we should not just stop the growth and the impetus and that was given to that, and we have to provide full-fledged services to all people who need them on an equal basis, irrespectively of their place of residence, irrespectively of the availability of documents or any other facts. Our task is provided all necessary services in a full-fledged manner, and not forgetting that our services should be of high quality and medical preparations are needed. So this is really very important. Thank you very much, and that's what I wanted to add. Thank you for your comment. Distinguished participants of today's meeting, if no other questions or comments, we are coming to the end of our meeting. I would like to thank all participants, particularly Dr. Murphy, for your time, for this honor, for the first time in Kazakhstan to present this global report titled In Danger. And this is quite symbolic that on the eve of the 1st of December, the Global AIDS Day, I think that following this report in Kazakhstan and or globally there will be events launched which are dedicated to this forthcoming day. And I think only through joint efforts of the governmental bodies with civil society, like it was emphasized by our Moldovan colleague, we can achieve our goals, because and UNAIDS goals will be achieved by 2030. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your participation. I think that we will be able to achieve all success all together. Thank you. Colleagues, I have a couple of messages. First, we would like just to make a picture of a photo, take a photo on the background of our banner. Just please come to this to the podium so that we would just take a picture. Second, please stay here because we have coffee, tea, so please help yourself, and then you can just leave the office. Thank you. So now I can I can release all people if you want to.